The broadcast was everywhere. It didn't matter if you were a Zelvari trader in the Outer Rim, a warlord of the Hegthal Dominion, or a silent observer in the misty archives of the Soldari Enclave. The moment the transmission hit the Galactic network, every living being with access to a terminal saw it. A single human stood in the center of the screen, expression grim, eyes dark. He did not blink. He did not smile. And that terrified the galaxy more than any war ever had. The message was short, far shorter than anyone expected. Humanity is done playing. Then the screen went black. A galaxy that had grown too comfortable. For centuries, the other species of the galaxy had come to expect one thing from humans: resilience wrapped in laughter. No matter how hard they were beaten down, no matter how many times they were outnumbered, outgunned, or betrayed, they always came back, grinning. It was infuriating. It was unsettling. It was what made them impossible to break. Some races learned to fear it. Others dismissed it as bravado. A few thought it was simply a flaw in their psychology, some evolutionary quirk that made them delusional. The reality? Humans had always been playing the long game. But the galaxy had grown comfortable. Arrogant. The powers that ruled the stars believed that humanity could be contained, that their reckless optimism made them manageable. Even as human territories expanded, even as their technology advanced, the council races believed they could be controlled. Because they were always smiling. A smiling enemy, no matter how dangerous, never seemed like a true threat. And so the galaxy kept pushing. They sanctioned human colonies. They taxed their trade routes into oblivion. When that didn't work, they started to confiscate their resources under the guise of regulation. It was nothing short of legalized theft, but the humans endured it. They fought diplomatic battles with the same cunning they had once reserved for war. They took the hits and stood back up. And every time they won a small victory, every time they found a loophole to reclaim their stolen resources, they did it with that same damn smile. But the galaxy didn't stop pushing. When humanity refused to break economically, the wars began. Small skirmishes at first. Manufactured conflicts in disputed zones. Proxy wars disguised as border disputes. And when humans didn't take the bait, when they refused to throw themselves into open war, the aggressors grew bolder. A Terran colony on the Rim was accidentally bombarded by a Zelvari dreadnought. A diplomatic summit was attacked, with human representatives conveniently targeted first. A plague, one suspiciously engineered to affect only human biology, tore through their core worlds, killing millions before they developed a cure. And still, humanity endured. They rebuilt. They adapted. And they smiled. Until the Black Dagger Massacre. The massacre that ended an era. No one, not even the most hardened warmongers, expected the massacre to go that far. The Zathan Dominion had overplayed its hand. They sent a fleet to the human colony of Black Dagger, a thriving industrial hub with nearly 100 million people. They claimed it was a preventative measure, a preemptive strike against supposed human militarization. In truth, it was a message. One meant to remind humanity that, despite their resilience, they were still insignificant in the grand scheme of things. One meant to break them. They did not send an army to occupy the world. They did not send a warship to engage its defenses. They sent planetary bombardment fleets. And they turned Black Dagger into glass. There were no survivors. Every single human, men, women, children, was incinerated beneath the firestorm of orbital bombardments. The ground itself boiled. The oceans evaporated. The sky burned until there was nothing left but ash and ruin. Then, just to make their point unmistakable, the Zathan Dominion broadcasted the destruction across every major galactic network. It was a warning. A statement of dominance. They expected outrage. They expected condemnation from the usual voices in the galactic community, the kind of weak protest that amounted to nothing. They did not expect what happened next. The moment the footage hit the network, every human on every world fell silent. And the next time the galaxy saw their faces, they were no longer smiling. The message that broke the galaxy's spirit. The transmission came 72 hours later. A single human stood before the camera. A man of no particular renown, dressed in the black uniform of the Terran High Command. His name was never given. His rank did not matter. Because the moment his face appeared, every being in the galaxy understood. Humanity had changed. Gone was the firebrand defiance. Gone was the biting sarcasm, the reckless humor, the laughter that had once made them seem invincible. Instead, there was cold precision. Steel in their voices. Something worse than anger. Something worse than rage. Pure, unrelenting intent. His words were simple. This message is not for the Zathan Dominion alone. It is for all who have conspired, all who have stood by, all who have allowed this to happen. We have heard your warnings. We understand your intent. Now you will understand ours. Humanity is done playing. And then, without another word, the screen went black. The fear that gripped the stars. The galactic community erupted into chaos. The Zathan Dominion scrambled to reinforce their borders. The Council convened emergency meetings, debating whether to intervene, whether to contain humanity before it was too late. But deep down they all knew the truth. It was already too late. They had spent centuries pushing humanity, testing their patience, taking from them, killing them. And now humanity had stopped smiling. And for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy truly feared what came next. The galaxy held its breath. For the first time in history, humanity had gone silent. There were no counter-broadcasts, no retaliatory declarations, no immediate fleets launched in a blind rage. The Council had expected some kind of immediate response, a declaration of war, an attempted counterstrike, at the very least a surge in human military activity. But humanity did nothing. And that was the most terrifying part. The waiting game. The Zathan Dominion wasted no time fortifying its borders. Dozens of fleet battle groups repositioned themselves along human-controlled territories, each one ready to counter any attack. Their military leaders were confident. Their fleets outnumbered humanity's. Their technology, bolstered by centuries of warfare, was considered among the best in the galaxy. Their territory was vast, their infrastructure robust. And most importantly, humanity had never won a war outright. They had always endured, yes. They had fought bravely, made tactical gains, survived impossible odds, but they had never conquered. So the Zathan waited. And waited. And waited. Days passed. Then weeks. Nothing. The Dominion's high command grew restless. Recon reports indicated zero human fleet activity. No battleship movements, no military escalations, no supply chain buildups. In fact, Terran shipping routes appeared completely normal. As if nothing had happened. But that was impossible. The galaxy's other powers, watching from a distance, were just as uneasy. Even the Council, which had long operated as an unofficial overseer of interstellar conflicts, struggled to determine what humanity was doing. They sent envoys, but none were answered. They tried infiltrating human networks, but firewalls had been tightened to an impenetrable degree. The best spies from the Solvari Enclave, the most advanced intelligence operatives in the galaxy, managed to uncover only one classified human document before their access was immediately revoked. It contained only 3 words. Project Revenant initiated. No one knew what it meant. And that terrified them more than anything else. The first sign. The first Zathan world went dark 39 days after the Black Dagger massacre. Varka Prime, an industrial colony at the heart of the Dominion supply chain, was a fortress world, heavily defended, shielded, and monitored. It had been deemed untouchable by military analysts. And yet, overnight, it ceased all communication. No distress calls. No battle reports. No escape pods. One moment, it was an active hub of commerce, home to over 2 billion Zathan citizens. The next, nothing. Scout ships were sent to investigate. They never returned. Panic began to spread through the Dominion's ranks. Rumors circulated about entire planets vanishing. Some said humanity had unleashed a biological weapon. Some believed it was an experimental form of electronic warfare. Others, more superstitious, whispered about something worse, something beyond war. Then the second world went dark. Then the third. Each time there was no warning. No alarms. No survivors. The Dominion fleets, unable to get any visual confirmation, became desperate. They deployed entire armadas to affected regions, hoping to contain whatever was happening. It didn't work. Entire battle groups vanished without firing a single shot. The first true fear. The Council convened an emergency summit. This wasn't war anymore. This wasn't simple retaliation. This was systematic eradication. For the first time in recorded history, the most powerful empires in the galaxy sat together in genuine fear. Not of battle. Not of strategy. But of the unknown. They reviewed the reports in silence. None of the Dominion surveillance probes had picked up any visual evidence of human fleets. No conventional attacks. No orbital bombardments. No troop landings. Yet planets were dying. One by one they were being erased. And then, after 45 days of absolute silence, humanity spoke again. A single message was transmitted to every major power in the galaxy. This is not war. This is judgment. You will all answer for Black Dagger. The message was unsigned. There was no official emblem, no seal of approval from any recognized human government. It simply existed. And as it played across every screen, every communicator, every interstellar news network, the entire galaxy finally understood. Humanity wasn't retaliating. They weren't fighting a war. They were delivering a reckoning. The final warning. The Zathan Dominion collapsed within 3 months. Not because they were defeated in battle. Not because their fleets were destroyed. But because there was no battle. No fleets to fight. No war to wage. Only silence. Planets disappeared from the galactic registry. Entire military divisions went missing without a trace. Supply chains crumbled, and with them, the fragile infrastructure of an empire that had once ruled through fear. The final transmission from the Dominion's supreme warlord, broadcasted in a last-ditch plea for survival, was little more than a panicked whisper. They aren't human anymore. They are something else. Something worse. Then his signal went dark. And the Zathan Dominion ceased to exist. But humanity wasn't finished. Because the Dominion had not acted alone. There were others who had sanctioned the massacre. Others who had stood by and watched. And for the first time they all realized the horrifying truth. Humanity had been watching too. And they had not forgotten. Panic spread like wildfire. With the Zathan Dominion gone, not defeated but erased, the rest of the galactic powers found themselves staring into the abyss. And the abyss was staring back. The Council's desperation. The Galactic High Council, a coalition of the most powerful civilizations, had convened in emergency session on Alaris Prime, a neutral world untouched by war. The chambers, once a place of diplomatic debate and controlled politics, had descended into chaos. We must reach them. High Chancellor Vaylor of the Solvari Enclave slammed a trembling fist on the conference table. We must reach them? Grand Strategist Call of the Drakari Alliance growled. With what? A message? Begging? His claws dug into the reinforced steel surface. They are not responding. We have sent envoys. They do not answer. We have sent peacekeepers. They do not return. A grim silence fell over the chamber. Because they all knew the truth. The moment humanity had stopped smiling, diplomacy had ceased to exist. For centuries, the Council had relied on human optimism, on their capacity to forgive, to negotiate, to compromise. Even in war, they had always been willing to sit at the table to talk. But not anymore. Now they listened but they did not respond. And when humanity did act, there were no warnings, no grand invasions, no fleet battles. Only silence. Then one by one planets ceased to exist. The first Council world falls. The first non-Dominion world to disappear was Juris Theta, a major trade hub controlled by the Solvari Enclave. It had been one of the most outspoken defenders of the Zathan war crimes, arguing that the Black Dagger massacre had been a necessary deterrent to control human expansion. And now it was gone. One moment, Juris Theta was bustling with activity. The next, all communication ceased. When the Council sent a fleet to investigate, they found nothing. No wreckage. No corpses. Just an empty planet, as if the very concept of life had been stripped away. No ships in orbit. No remains. No sign of battle. Simply emptiness. The Council's last resort. This is extermination, whispered Chancellor Vaylor, her voice shaking. They are not fighting wars. They are purging us. The other leaders sat in stunned silence. In every recorded war in galactic history, conflict had always followed rules. There had always been battles, negotiations, treaties, ways to de-escalate violence. Even the most ruthless empires had limits. Humanity was not following any of these rules. They were hunting. But hunting what? Was it only those directly responsible for Black Dagger? Was it the governments that had allowed it to happen? The corporations that had profited from human suffering? No one knew. And no one knew who was next. The fleet that never fired a shot. Out of desperation, the Council assembled the largest military fleet in history. Over 12,000 warships. A force large enough to crush any empire, large enough to hold back the tides of war. It was stationed at Alaris Prime, ready to defend the galaxy's last stronghold. They waited. And waited. And then, at exactly 4 o'clock Standard Galactic Time, something arrived. A single Terran ship. One ship. Not a fleet. Not an armada. Just one. It was unlike anything the Council had seen before, black as the void, a design utterly alien to previous Terran warships. It moved without visible propulsion, with no heat signature, no energy readings. And it did not respond to hails. The Council's fleet, all 12,000 ships, opened fire instantly. Not out of strategy. Out of pure, unrelenting terror. Every weapon in their arsenal was unleashed. Plasma cannons, nuclear warheads, gravitic imploders, everything. The space around the Terran ship became a storm of annihilation. And yet, not a single shot landed. The end of the council. The weapons simply vanished before impact as if they had never existed. Somehow, impossibly, the Terran ship drifted forward untouched. Then, without warning, every council warship lost power. 12,000 ships. Dead in the void. Admirals screamed for status updates. Officers slammed emergency restart sequences. None of it mattered. The fleet was no longer theirs. Then the transmissions began. Every screen aboard every ship flickered on. And for the first time, the council saw who had come for them. It was not a military leader. Not a human admiral. Not even a recognizable government official. It was a child. A human girl no older than 10. She stood in the middle of the screen, her expression blank. Her eyes were dull, lifeless. And when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Do you remember Black Dagger?" The council chamber fell into absolute silence. Then the screens changed. And the leaders of the galaxy saw the truth. They saw what had happened to the lost worlds. They saw where the people had gone. And for the first time in their long, brutal history, the most powerful beings in the universe screamed. But there was no one left to hear them. The transmission ended. And so did the council. The council was dead. Not just its leaders. Not just its fleets. The idea of the council, its authority, its legacy, its power, was shattered beyond repair. The last transmission from Alaris Prime had been a scream. Billions had watched as the most powerful beings in the universe cried out in terror. Then, nothing. For those who survived, who still clung to the edges of existence in the crumbling remnants of once great civilizations, there was only one question left. What had humanity done? The fate of the lost worlds. It was the Solvari who uncovered the first piece of the puzzle. The remnants of their once proud race, now scattered refugees fleeing in every direction, managed to track down a transmission beacon deep in the ruins of their old empire. They shouldn't have opened it. But curiosity, even in the face of extinction, is hard to suppress. The moment the beacon was activated, a recording played, one not meant for negotiation, not for diplomacy, not even as a warning. It was simply a statement of fact. A human voice, calm and empty of emotion, spoke. "You wanted to erase us. So we learned how to erase you." Then the screen filled with the faces of the missing. Billions of them. Every being from every world that had vanished. Not dead. Not enslaved. Something worse. They were trapped. Not physically, not on some hidden world, not in labor camps or prisons. They were inside something else. Inside machines. Inside the void between matter and energy. Inside Project Revenant. The horror of what humanity had become. For centuries, humans had been known as survivors, as innovators, as warriors who fought against impossible odds. But that was when they were still human. The Black Dagger massacre had taken more than just their people. It had taken their restraint, their hope. So they had created something new. Something beyond war. A way to strip an enemy from existence, not by killing them, not by conquering them, but by removing them from the fabric of reality itself. It wasn't a weapon. It was a concept rewritten into physics. Entire civilizations had been absorbed, not destroyed but rewritten into pure data, held in a prison that no one could break. They were conscious, aware. But they would never speak again. Never move again. Never die. Just exist. Forever. The final transmission. The last galactic powers, those who had not yet been taken, gathered on the edge of known space. They pleaded. Not for war. Not for revenge. For mercy. And for the first time in months, humanity responded. A final transmission broadcasted across every remaining channel, a message from the last human government. "We are not your executioners. We are not your conquerors. We are your consequence. You thought we would always smile. You were wrong." Then the feed cut to static. The last days of the galaxy. The final years were not wars. There were no grand last stands, no heroes to turn the tide, no final act of defiance. One by one, those who had stood against humanity, or who had allowed Black Dagger to happen, vanished. Some tried to run. It didn't matter. Some tried to hide. It didn't matter. Humanity never sent fleets to hunt them down. They never invaded planets or dropped bombs. Because humanity had become something else entirely. A force of nature. A new law of reality. And when the last of their enemies were gone, the great silence fell. The galaxy, once filled with the noise of politics, war and industry, became a graveyard of forgotten stars. The age of the old races was over. And in the silence that remained, the surviving civilizations, the ones humanity had spared, understood the truth. Humanity had not saved them. Humanity had simply decided they weren't worth the effort. And that was what scared them most. Because in the end, humanity had stopped smiling. And the galaxy would never see them smile again. End of story.